I'm Gary Anthony Ramsay with your Hour News Now Rewind. Stories making headlines for the week ending March 19, 2011. Our top stories include: the threat of nuclear crisis in Japan raises health concerns on the U.S. West Coast. Michigan sets the stage for the next major battle for union rights and taxes. The Food and Drug Administration ponders a ban on cigarette companies that targeted black communities. The UN approves a no-fly zone over Libya. Is it the start of a new American war? The Barry Bonds steroid trial gets underway, and the biographer of a trailblazing black author passes away. Our top story: a devastating earthquake in Japan left tens of thousands dead on the island nation, but now the threat of a nuclear disaster there has the world concerned about a wider threat to human life. Crews continue to make attempts to cool atomic reactors that were damaged in last week's powerful earthquake and tsunami. Military and civilian teams are dropping water onto 2 of 4 reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear facility. If the temperature of the cold cannot be maintained, there's international concern that 1 or more of the reactors will melt down into the Earth's crust, sending radioactive debris and smoke into the air. That plume would be picked up by the Earth's prevailing winds and could be on the U.S. West Coast a week after the meltdown. The International Atomic Agency says more than 20,000 people have been evacuated from the immediate area around the plant after a rise in radiation levels. The president has urged U.S. residents not to panic.
We do not expect harmful levels of radiation to reach the West Coast, Hawaii, Alaska, or U.S. territories in the Pacific. That is the judgment of our Nuclear Regulatory Commission and many other experts.
The last major disastrous nuclear accident was in April of 1986 at the Chernobyl plant in Ukraine. An explosion at one of the reactors killed 70 people initially, but the radioactive fallout that spread across the former Soviet Union has been attributed to more than 1 million deaths. Well, back in the U.S., the budget battle grinds on with some apparent cracks among Republicans in both houses of Congress. The Senate overwhelmingly passed another stopgap spending measure to prevent another threatened government shutdown. But conservative opposition is making the task of negotiating a lasting deal complicated for Republican leaders. Conservatives are determined to execute a list of their priorities, including defunding the health care law and Planned Parenthood. Congress now has a 3-week reprieve before the country is again at risk of a halt in government services. Talk continued behind the scenes to reach a long-term budget solution. Less than a week after a controversial law passes in Wisconsin that eliminates union collective bargaining rights, now the governor of Michigan is setting up a proposal that could set a new stage for a union tax fight there. Republican Rick Snyder has proposed cutting social services and taxing pensions while passing on the revenue to corporations in the form of tax breaks. But the measure doesn't stop there. He also wants the right to replace local governments with so-called management teams that could dissolve contracts and fire employees. Snyder was booed at a recent Ford plant opening by union employees wearing red Wisconsin Solidarity t-shirts.
A small Texas town is divided after allegations that an 11-year-old girl was raped over a 2-day period by more than a dozen men and boys. Cleveland, Texas prosecutors say the attack took place in this abandoned trailer last Thanksgiving. The allegations only recently came to light after school officials discovered cell phone video being circulated of at least one attack. 18 males, ranging in age from 15 to 27, have been charged with assault in the case, but the number of arrests could climb to 28. The case has divided this small town, with some Cleveland residents actually blaming the 11-year-old victim for dressing provocatively. The judge in the case has issued a gag order.
The Food and Drug Administration is considering a ban on menthol cigarette companies, some of which have been accused of targeting the black community. The FDA's Tobacco Product Scientific Advisory Committee has been reviewing the health effects of menthol cigarettes for the past year and is due to submit its final report and recommendations to the agency. Lorillard, the maker of Newports, and R.J. Reynolds, maker of Cools, have filed lawsuits to block the recommendation. A Boston jury recently awarded a family $71 million after they found the company illegally targeted minors in the African American community. In your Hour News Now World Wrap, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi declares a ceasefire as the UN Security Council approves the use of force to install a no-fly zone over his country. The exact rules of engagement are not finalized, but in general, it will prevent any flight over Libya except for that providing humanitarian aid. U.S. warships and bombers could crater runways, fighters could engage planes in the sky or troops on the ground. Libyan forces have pounded rebel positions and have given Gaddafi forces the advantage in this civil war. Fighting started after civilians demanding that Gaddafi leave power were instead met with a crackdown by military troops. Tens of thousands have fled to the borders to escape the fighting. In Haiti, another surprise return has become a reality. Jean-Bertrand Aristide returns home 7 years after he was chased out of the island nation by a coup. The former president says he wants to return to help rebuild his country that remains in ruin after a devastating earthquake there more than a year ago. Aristide left Haiti in 2004 after being ousted in a coup. The Obama administration has opposed his return 2 days before the elections there, fearing it would further destabilize the situation. Aristide flew back accompanied by his wife, 2 daughters, and actor Danny Glover.
The Haitian people mark the end of exile and coup d'etat, while peacefully we must move from social exclusion to social inclusion.
Aristide's push to return follows the stunning return of former dictator Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier in January. Duvalier was ousted in a revolt led by Aristide. In the Sudan, leaders from the newly emancipated South are claiming that Muslim leaders in the North continue to conspire to try to overthrow their government.
They have stepped up the destabilization of Southern Sudan by creating, training, and arming and financing various militia groups.
The accusation comes after fighting in the southern oil-rich region, now controlled by the predominantly Christian South. Last month, 90% of Sudanese voted for the country to split in two after decades of civil war. That's your World Wrap. In sports news, the steroid perjury trial of home run king Barry Bonds gets underway this week as the feds release what they describe as evidence in that case. The retired San Francisco Giant faces 4 counts of perjury and 1 count of obstruction of justice regarding his statements that he never knowingly took steroids. Prosecutors released transcripts of voicemail messages left by Bonds to a woman they describe as his former mistress, Miss Kimberly Bell. In the messages, Bonds is reportedly always angry and calling Miss Bell explicit names. His lawyers argue the messages have no bearing on the case as they do not mention substance abuse or abuse at all. Bonds, who now holds the home run record title of 762, has denied using performance-enhancing drugs, even though his neck and calf sizes went up 20% during the time of the alleged steroid use. In Philadelphia, a sports team is honored after making history in Virginia. They are the first all-black team to win an interscholastic national title in polo. The team from the Work to Ride program defeated other groups from U.S. cities and Canada to claim the title last week. The Cowtown Work to Ride program has been training inner-city youth since 1994.
Want to do really good in it, just practice every day, and a sport is a sport, no matter if it's for black, white, anything.
The team was honored by Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter, whose daughter was also a one-time participant in the program. And finally, she was a white writer who made the rare decision to chronicle the life of a controversial black trailblazer. Dr. Hazel Rowley wrote about the life of Richard Wright. Wright challenged stereotypes about black authors in the 1950s when his book Native Son became a best-selling novel. Wright often wrote about the bitter taste of the black experience in America. His other books, White Man Listen and Black Boy, are still discussed in college classes today. Rowley, who was born in London but raised in Australia, at first wasn't sure if she could capture the essence of the African-American struggle Wright wrestled with in his work right up until his death in 1960. But carefully going through his journals, letters, and eyewitness accounts, she crafted Richard Wright, The Life and Times, in 2008. Hazel Rowley died after a series of strokes. She was 59. For a complete look at any of the stories you've seen on The Rewind, remember, as always, go to the bottom of the webpage, find the link of the story you'd like to see, and click your way through. That's your Our News Now Rewind for this week. I'm Gary Anthony Ramsay.